if you're in the middle of the battlefield, there's no going back. You can't just coast. You can't coast in the middle of the battlefield. You have to be armed and put your armor on and fighting. So let's just learn how to more effectively fight. That's kind of what it comes down to. There's no taking the day off. There's no going back to sit on the couch and it's not going to happen. Nothing else is going to happen. We are in the battle. So let's just learn how to fight. Welcome to the Intentional Breakthrough Podcast. We are discussing everything related to spiritual warfare for the believer. Our hope is to just help believers find freedom. And I am your co-host, Charity, along with Tania Hilton. And we are just going to discuss everything related to these topics, to spiritual warfare for the believer, authority, breakthrough, healing, everything that goes with that. And so today I'm going to dive into what is the Bible saying about spiritual warfare and oppression. And Tania told her story about realizing this reality in her life, and I told my story. And so one of my favorite passages in the Bible about this is Ephesians 6. So Ephesians 6, the Apostle Paul writes that our battle is not against flesh and blood, but it is against spiritual powers in heavenly places. And if we break that down, basically what he's saying, number one, is we are in a battle. We are in a battle. And that alone is enough to just give a sigh of relief for me, because I feel like I'm in a battle. I feel like there's something coming against me and actively fighting against me in my walk with the Lord and in my walk to just share the good news of Christ and to just, all the things that I want to see happen in my life. I feel like I'm fighting. I feel like I'm in a battle. And that just helps explain a lot of things that take place, that come up. We have opposition in our walk with the Lord. And number two, what that passage is saying is we are in a battle, but it is not against flesh and blood. It is not against other people. It is not against even the physical circumstances we're facing. So if other people are not our truest enemy, what is? And so that's what the passage is about. We're in a battle. Other people are not the enemy, but we do still have an enemy. And that's the key. That's the thing. That's the piece of the puzzle that we are want to bring to the table. And so it is spiritual powers in heavenly places. And so Paul did not talk about this passage to bring fear. And I think that's why a lot of times it's not talked about. He didn't talk about it to bring fear. He talked about it to bring strategy. He wanted to help us as believers become more strategic in how we face and deal with different issues that come up in our life. And so he goes on in Ephesians to talk about the spiritual weapons and armor that the Lord has for us to help us navigate this journey. And so, Tania, you've been walking with people. We both have been walking with people for years with this issue, just in the realm of counseling, but also in helping others walk into spiritual freedom, freedom from oppression. And so you've been a counselor now for the past 5 years. And so just talk about that. What does that look like? How are the ways that spiritual oppression can show up in a believer's life?
Yeah. And we touched a little bit about it too, in the beginning, and we say it often, we're not talking possession, it's very rare for it to see an actual possession. But when it comes to the believer, we are absolutely oppressed. We have temptations, which is common to all believers, and then oppression. And what that looks like, I guess the best way I could describe it is having external pressures, lies, heaviness. You talked about heaviness. That was one of the things that you said in one of your episodes. Harassment. That's what I was experiencing. Harassment through dreams, through fears. So one of the keys is to understand the battlefield is primarily going to happen in the mind before it happens in the body. So what are the schemes of the devil? And I say it all the time that he works in smoke and mirrors, because there's not actual things that are going to happen to you physically, but it's going to come through hearing accusations, lies, deception, isolation, exaggerations of truth. So that's where we're really going to see this oppression. So oh gosh, you said something the other day, and I was like, that's a lie, when you were sharing one of your stories, oh, I'm never going to get through this. I'm never going to see freedom. I'm never going to see. That is lies. So that's where I see it the most, where we can identify in people's words. So if you listen long enough, you're going to hear the root of what people are struggling with. Mine You could hear it in, I was afraid to walk down the hallway. I was afraid to go to the bathroom at night. I was afraid to fill in the blank. So you listen long enough, you're going to hear where the oppression is, and it
Yeah.
comes through lies.
So how does it look like though? So let's say there's somebody that's a believer and they're just even wondering like, am I facing spiritual warfare in my life? Like,
hmm
so what are the different ways that you've seen it play out in
hmm
people's life as a counselor?
hmm The biggest one is always going to be lies. Like I hear them say lies, lies about themselves or about their identity.
Well, no, I mean
Um,
like problems they're facing. So I mean more like circumstantially like physical issues that they're facing. Why do they come to you for counseling, basically? So you as a counselor have realized it stems down to like that's the root of the issue, that there's
mhm.
lies that they're believing, different things like that. But why do people come to you for counseling
It's
in the
always
first place?
relational. It's always going to be
Okay.
relational because they're
Okay.
having
There's
problems
relational
with.
conflicts.
Correct. They're having the relational is either conflict with themselves or conflict most of the time with other people. So what I hear is like, well, my husband is da 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 da, or my wife won't do da, or she's making me unhappy, or she. So it always comes through on the surface of relational issues. I'm having problems with my mom, or problems with my dad. So it always comes in as if it's problems with relations that we have with
Right.
people around us. So we go back to the scripture. Ephesians says, your battle is not against flesh and blood. That's us, right? So
So
the
it's, yeah.
battle, yeah, it's not. So if you come to see me and you're saying, and so that's a piece of it. You could come to see me and say, I'm having problems in my marriage and I need help.
Yeah.
So again, battle's not against flesh and blood. But then you could also come to see me and say things like, I'm suffering with depression, or I have a lot of anxiety. So anxiety is another way that it manifests too. I always say anxiety is fear of the future, fear. So there's that word again, fear of the future. And depression is regret, remorse, shame, and guilt of the past. Right. So that's
Okay.
usually how, when I'm sitting with somebody, and usually they have both.
Yeah.
One's going to be bigger than the other, but they're going to have both.
Yeah.
So it is always relational that they're having difficulty. So this is how you see oppression manifesting. How are the relationships in your life? If you have difficulty making friends, you have difficulty keeping friends, you're fighting with people at work all the time, you're fighting with your spouse, you're fighting with it's your mother's fault, your dad's fault, your sibling's fault. So that right there is spiritual oppression. That's always going to be like the tell that somebody's dealing with spiritual oppression when they can't find freedom in relationships.
Okay,
So
so there's
that's
that word
one.
freedom. Because I was gonna say, like, okay,
Mhm.
so how do you really know if someone's having conflict in a relationship that there's spiritual impression involved? Like, oh, how come you connect the 2?
Well, it's always going to start. That's like, if there's relational issues, it's always going to be spiritual oppression, whether it's from their side or the other person's side. So you listen to the story, like what's going on. So let me see if I can get an example. An individual that I was counseling, her son, I suggested that she start getting counseling too. So he's a teenager, and I'm like, you need to just sitting with her and hearing the story and how she reacts in situations. So her reaction to situations reveals to me that she has spiritual oppression. For her, she doesn't deal well with emotions. And so if her son, 13-year-old boy, 12-year-old boy, is having big emotions, it triggers her. So she would use things like trigger. So words that she would use, trigger,
Define trigger
right?
really quick. Yeah.
Okay. So something that made her very angry. So something for her, the trigger was when my son got emotional, it got me very angry. And so anger
She
right
reacted
there.
in a way that she didn't want to. Okay, so she was
Exactly.
triggered.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she was triggered. And so through conversations with her, there was a lot of trauma that happened in the past that we went back to. We were able to see, the issue. So she's bringing her son to me to see because he needs counseling. And then it's when I counsel children, it's always the parents. Okay. So just if you ever bring your child to me, it's always counseling has to start with the parents. There's usually something that is being oppressed with the parents. It trickles down to
Okay.
relationships with the children. So for her, it was we had to go back and see what was triggering these emotions. Why is she having a hard time regulating with emotions? And she had some wounds that we had to deal with. Lies. So now here goes back to how this devil works, how the enemy works. Lies, accusations. So she had come into agreement with lies that she believed about herself. I'm just an angry person. I'm an, so Here's a funny
Yeah.
story. I used to say back in the days in my 20s, like before I became a Christian, but also like my teens through my 20s, I would enjoy saying, "Well, I'm just a bee. Like I'm just the B word. That's who I am." And I'm like, "That's not who I am. That's not how God created me. That's not who He wants me to be with His people or be with myself." It was a defense mechanism. So
Mhm.
spiritual oppression, also, that's the other word, is a defense mechanism. So is there something that you're using as a defense to either deal with your own emotions or deal with relationships with other people? And so that defense mechanism is I'm going to take on an identity that's not actually mine, but the enemy told me, just do this and you will be happy. Goes into your counterfeit happiness conversations
Okay.
from earlier too. So I came into agreement with an identity that wasn't actually me, that didn't actually give me joy or make me happy because I didn't like being that person. I didn't that's not who I am now. But
Yeah.
in my 20s, that's how I used that lie to survive, to be able to deal with like conflict that was going on in my
So
life.
really what you're saying is spiritual oppression is real. That's the enemy. That's like, let's say that those are the arrows the enemy is shooting at us all day long,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But they're only really hitting their mark at places where there's something going on, like there's like a wound there, or there's a weak
Yeah.
spot, or there's like something from the past that hasn't resolved yet. And because that spot is wounded, the arrow comes, hits the mark, actually causes us pain. So really the
Yeah.
oppression and like the defense mechanism, those are two separate things. The defense
Mhm.
mechanism isn't the oppression, but it is kind of like an opening for that arrow to get in and create some damage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like we have these wounds, these lies, these issues from our past that we carry around. And then we're in the middle of a battlefield with arrows flying our way. And so this armor of God that we do have as Christians and we want to put on, let's say there's like weak spots in the armor from
Mhm.
the past wounds, from the defense mechanisms we carry, from the lies we tell ourselves or that we've come into agreement with. The fact that we're in the middle of the battle, those arrows expose the
Yes.
spots in our armor that are weak.
Yes, yes, exactly. I actually used that analogy almost exactly like that with somebody I was working with the other day, where I was telling her that um, because she was like, "Oh, I've got a lot of arrows. Like the enemy is just throwing a lot of arrows at me this weekend." And I said to her, because she was getting discouraged with being able to like this process of spiritual freedom, and why is the enemy still attacking me? I thought I was doing better, and now I took a step back, and it's like, no, you didn't take a step back. The arrows are always going to come. But when we
Hmm.
have that armor on, it's like they tink off of the armor. Like
Yeah.
they hit us, they just don't stick. But if
Yeah.
we have an exposed area of the armor, that's where the arrow is going to stick. And
Yeah.
that's the wound that we're going after.
Tell people that a lot too, people that I work with. It's like, let's say you've done some healing in this area, you like found some healing in this area of your shield of faith, whatever it might be.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling a little bit of a release. Like the arrows came and it just bounced right off and I don't even notice. And then tomorrow the enemy just like moves to this spot. And now he's like attacking this weak spot. And it's just like, it's part of the reality of it. It's not like a one stop quick fix. Like I can just go to the Lord, find healing for something real, and then I'm done, one and
Mhm.
done. It is just a constant journey because there are a lot of different facets of our lives, a lot of different things we've walked through in our lives. There are a lot of different parts of us, like parts that feel afraid or anxious or whatever it is. And it's just they get exposed through spiritual warfare. So
Yeah.
those wounded parts are not spiritual warfare, but they get exposed through spiritual warfare because the enemy is constantly going after the weak spots,
Yeah.
the parts where we're most vulnerable. And so
Yeah.
in some ways it's really, really frustrating. And it's like, why can't you just like come at me in the places where I'm strong and I'm able to withstand? But after having walked this journey for a long, long time, I've realized it's almost beneficial. Like, I'm like, "Okay," like, I now that I've realized how valuable healing is and how wonderful it is and how real it is and possible it is and all the good that it brings to my life and my family's
Yeah.
life and the kingdom of God, I want healing and I want those places healed. And so there was one time I started asking the Lord, I'm like, show me where else can we heal? Like, search me, oh God, Psalm 139, search me and show me any other places. And he's like, yeah, spiritual warfare will do that. Spiritual warfare will show you
Yes.
all the places that still need to be healed. And it's like, okay, all right, maybe I got to watch out what I pray for. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
and
say it
it's
all the
not that I
time.
pray for it, but
I say it to people all the time, is like, take it as a compliment if the enemy's hitting you hard, because that just means that you're gaining ground for the kingdom. It's
yeah,
like something is happening in your life and the enemy's afraid. When the enemy starts hitting you hard, it's like he's afraid that you're going to have spiritual breakthrough, that you're going to take back kingdom ground. So it's like, take it as a
yeah.
compliment, which is hard because, again, like you said, you pray, reveal to me the spots that I want to. When God does that, when he's like, okay, here you go, let me reveal the spots, you're like, man, this is hard. This is
I take
hard.
it back.
Yeah. And
No,
like
but every
Christ says that it's going to be hard. He doesn't promise us, and that this is, I think, another misconception of the Christian life, is that a Christian life is easy. Once I'm a Christian, everything's great. No, like
no.
Jesus says, like carrying your cross is hard. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be so worth it. And when you have
Oh,
spiritual
yeah.
freedom, it's so beautiful. It is so worth it.
I wouldn't say the Christian walk is necessarily easy, but it's so good, and it's like you're
Yeah.
not alone. You're never alone. You have the Lord with
Mm-hmm.
you. You have Him constantly bringing more and more joy and freedom and peace and healing to you and to your family. Like, it's definitely better on this side,
Yeah.
but it's not like it's a walk in the park. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
we're in the middle of a
But
battle.
the alternative also is all of the oppression, the harassment, the tormenting, right? So when I
Yeah,
think about too, you shared your story about having this deep depression, this heaviness that was constantly over you. That's not easy either. But it's
yeah,
it's almost like we sometimes, before we experience freedom, we are so used to the dysfunction that we're living in that it becomes normal. That it's like, oh, this
yeah,
heaviness is just a part of me, but it's not. It's
yeah,
like once you experience that freedom, then everything else there's so much joy that comes through that. And so
yeah.
you realize that there is no going back. Once you start this process, there is no going back.
Well, and you almost can't too, like, 'cause I do like to remind people, like, we are in the middle of a battlefield and in the middle of a battle. In the middle
Hmm.
of a battlefield,
Hmm.
is there, like,
Hmm.
a lot of just, like, coasting and taking the day off? It's like, no, you either have to be fighting or someone's fighting you. Like, so
Hmm.
even it's not like, 'cause it's hard, 'cause I'll talk to a lot of Christians that you can get weary sometimes, like, you are in the middle of a battle. And it's almost like the grass is always greener on the other side. Of like, it's not greener on the other side. Like, walking with the
No.
Lord, fighting with Him is the best place to be, because if you are not actively fighting in this battlefield, you are getting destroyed. So you are
Yeah.
getting pushed back and destroyed. And so what if okay, so that brings us back to what we wanted to talk about today is if you're in this middle of the battlefield, there's no going back. You can't just
Mhm.
coast. You can't
Mhm.
coast in the middle of a battlefield. You have to
Mhm.
be armed and put your armor on and fighting. So let's just learn how to more effectively fight. That's kind of what it
Yeah,
comes down to. There's no
it
taking the
does.
day off. There's no like going back to sit on the couch and it's not going to happen. Like nothing else is going to happen. Like we are in a
Yeah.
battle. So let's just learn how to fight.
Yeah.
So you mentioned lies. You mentioned that in the midst of a spiritual pressure that comes upon people and they're starting to feel the strain and the crack and a lot of their relationships are struggling, you found that you dig down and you found that there's lies that they often are believing that are
Yeah.
actually causing what? Like, how can believing a lie deep in your heart cause something like that?
Because you give the enemy that authority and that foothold. So, like, here's a lie. Again, so if a couple comes in to see me, or a spouse, a husband or a wife comes to see me, and they're like, one of the lies would sound like, my husband is never going to change. My wife is never going to change. Okay, so never going to change. Or I'm never going to be happy. Or this is never going to work.
How could believing a lie give opening to the enemy? Like, what does that mean?
Because
Like,
you give authority to the enemy to continue to torment you. So it's once you believe that lie,
mhm.
then everything you see, everything that your husband does or your wife does, is like, well, there you go. See, I told you they're never going to change. It's like so now you've got almost blinders on. So you're looking through the lens of that lie and you're waiting for it and you're expecting it. And so even if your spouse does something, they forgot to do the laundry and they say they would. Oh, you see, they're never going to change. They're always going to disappoint me. And so recognizing it as a lie is like one of the first steps. It's like,
Well, it's
that's
almost like
tormenting
you
you.
come into agreement with that lie and you're just like, "Oh, that's just what they do. They're just going to do that again. And it almost changes your attitude and almost like
Yes.
invites more of that bad vibes, like that just like negative
Negativity.
attitude and like
Yes.
negative viewpoint. And then the next thing that comes out of your mouth towards your spouse is something that's probably negative and they feel it and they react. And so it's almost like the more you come into agreement with that negativity in your mind, the more it changes your actions and the more it starts to actually promote this negativity and the cycle
Yeah.
continues. They talk about that all the time, just like what is in your mind really does start to dictate your actions.
Yeah.
Just this morning, my husband and kids were talking about this as it relates to sports. Like when you're going to go play a sports game, athletes, like elite athletes talk about this all the time that they develop a dialogue in their mind as they go to play a game
Mhm.
that's positive thinking and positive results and like, oh, I'm going to do good this game. Like this is going to go well. And they notice they play better when that happens. So there's something about the thoughts in your mind. Like
Mhm.
um, as a man thinketh, so is he, out
Mhm.
of there's different proverbs that talk about that. Like what is in your heart and
Yeah.
in your mind, like that's what flows out into your life. And
Yeah.
so that's a battleground. The battleground is
Mhm.
is in our thoughts, in our heart,
Mhm.
like where we believe, where we think. And as we think and believe, that starts to determine our actions.
Okay, and
And
you just
so
said something that's key too, okay? Because it starts, and that's what we talked about. It starts in the mind and then it comes out of our mouth. So there's power of life and death in the tongue. This is in Proverbs, right? So out of abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And then there's power of life and death in the tongue. So think about it in your mind. So the battlefield starts in your mind. The enemy whispers a lie. You see your husband's never going to change or your wife's never going to change. You see your spouse is always going to disrespect you. And then out of your mouth, you speak that to your spouse. You're never going to love me. You're always going to disrespect me. Okay. Now you're speaking it into existence and its words are coming out. Power of life and death is in the tongue. Right? So are you
right.
speaking, and I say this in counseling all the time, are you speaking life or are you speaking death? Not just to each other, but then like, let's even just turn it into ourselves. How do you speak life and death into yourself through a lie?
That's good. I think it's the thoughts too. I think even just in our thoughts, if you start to hear these a thought like, "Gosh, I'm just like never gonna figure it out," and you just start to think that way and think that way, and you agree with it, and you just start speaking that to yourself, like it starts coming out into your words, what you're saying too. And
Mhm.
I gotta say, from personal experience, it starts to happen. Like what I think and ruminate on and think over and like start to speak, it becomes my reality and
Yes.
and my actions and um within a certain limit. And so yeah, I've learned like, gosh, filling my mind with the truth and speaking the truth and watching what I say, it really
Mhm.
does point to life, life or death. It really
Yeah.
does.
Could you imagine the scenario that you explained about your experience with that heaviness and
Yeah.
the lies that the enemy was telling you is
Yeah.
this is never going to get better. This is never.
Yeah.
And if you had cried out in that moment, God, this is never going to get better. This is never going to change. But you didn't. You did exactly the opposite. And you said heaviness
Yeah.
go. Like you believe so that
You know what? I was starting to feel a separation from that blackness because before it was just part of me. It was just like familiar. It was just
mm,
like felt like my thoughts. But I was starting to experience like, oh, this is me. This is that thing. There's a separation here, and that was the result of already having gone through some healing.
mm,
So or how to break free from oppression or even how it worked. None of that. I was sort of just like stumbling through it. And looking back, now that I know what I know, it's fascinating to see how the story played out because for a long time, that was my testimony. My testimony was I saw this thing and told God, I felt like God told me to tell it to go and it left. And that was kind of all I had. But I'm looking back, that happened in probably like around June or July of a summer in my life. Earlier that year in, I want to say January or February, I was going again, feeling really oppressed, really dark, really, really heavy. And
yeah,
a friend was talking with a friend, and I was like, kind of feeling like, I don't know how I can get through the night. Like, I just feel so bad. And a
yeah.
friend told me, she's like, you need to forgive. And I was like, I don't need to forgive. I'm like, maybe a couple little things, but like, I feel like I haven't really held grudges, like I'm Christian. You're not supposed to do that. Like, I let things go
Mm-hmm.
and I don't hold on to it. but I was so desperate for anything that I was like, "Okay, fine." So I pulled out a notebook and a pen. I was like, "Okay, God, is there anyone I need to forgive?" And a name popped in my head. And I'm like,
Wow.
"Oh, okay, well, that the risk ratio is pretty varied here." So, like, the risk, if that is God and I walk through forgiving them, not a big, or if it's not God, not a big deal, right? And so I'm like, "I'll just go with it." So I just like, "Okay, I forgive that person." And then, "Is there anyone else?" Another name popped to my head, and it just kept going and going, and I started filling out this paper of people that
Wow.
went back over my entire life. And I'm just like,
Wow.
"Okay, if this is God leading me, I haven't truly forgiven truly at, like, a deep heart level my whole life." I thought I had in my
Yeah.
mind, but, like, I'm just gonna go with it and go with it, and I just kept doing it, and at the end of that, I felt lighter. I was like, "Okay, I can
Yeah.
get through the night." Like, I wouldn't say, like, the depression was broken, but I was like, I felt a lot better. So that
Yeah.
was back in January. So if I go through a few more months and maybe April, May, something like that, I was talking with a friend, and I was having this conversation just about, just a relationship that was, like, had been kind of damaging, a little bit dysfunctional, and just trying to, like, pick up the pieces and try and, heal from that. And she told me, she's like, "Okay, well, were there any lies you believed?" And I'm like, "What?" Like, I hadn't really heard that language before. I'm like, "Lies I believe?" She's like, "Yeah, yeah, like, when you're in a relationship and different things happen and they can speak something to you or say something to you, and it's actually not the truth of God, and if you believe it, it can, make a mark on you."
Yeah.
And I was like, "I don't know." She's like, "Let's ask God." So we just started asking God, "Is there any lies?" Oh, wow, like, stuff just started coming
Yeah.
to me, and so she kinda just walked me through breaking agreement with them and then finding out, asking God what the truth was. So, like, "God, can you replace that
Wow.
with your truth?" And it was, like, hour and a half long, 2-hour conversation that I was just so grateful that she took the time to walk me through. So that was in May, and so it was in June or July when I was praying again, and so that darkness was still there, crying out to God, but this time it was, like, a little bit separate, and I heard that voice say, "Tell it to go," and I told it to go, and it left.
Wow.
And looking back, I didn't know what was going on then. Looking back, knowing what I know now, that forgiveness and breaking all of those lies and replacing it with God's truth, that is what got that separation and what allowed me to walk in the authority that Christ has for us. Tell it to go and
Right.
have it go. And what I've
Wow.
learned is that when there's some of that unforgiveness and those ties with the lie, some of them, when there's some unforgiveness and lies that we've believed, those are like little ties that tie
Uh-huh.
that to us. And it's like, it doesn't matter
Uh-huh.
how much we want that to go. It's just not going. It's like almost like
Yeah.
stuck to us. And so
Yeah.
all that process that I had walked through, that 6 to 9 month process, was like clipping all those ties, clipping them all.
Yeah.
And so that thing was no longer tied to me and it could just go. And so I could actually walk in the authority that Christ has given us.
Yeah.
And it's it's uncovering the schemes of the enemy. And it's like
Uh-huh.
we're all in the same boat, okay? Like, he is crafty and he has figured out these different things to get in there, but it's really not super complicated,
Uh-huh.
and it's all in scripture. And so it's just taking that time and asking the Lord, like, "Okay, what are the ties here?" Like, we can
Yeah.
just figure that out and go down those pull back those layers and just start uncovering what is causing this oppression to stick to me, because it's not supposed to. Christ has all
Uh-huh.
authority. I'm grafted into the family tree. And so he invites me to walk in that authority with him. So it's just about cutting all those ties so that I can walk in that place of authority.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. You touched on, and I know we're coming down to the end of our time together, but you touched on one thing that I want us to go deeper on is lies, because I guarantee you that every single Christian has come into agreement with lies. Now, like you're listening, there are lies, and it sounds like your own voice because it's something like you make a mistake. You're like, oh gosh, I'm such an idiot. How can I do that? Or I'm such a dummy. And if you're around me at any time, my friends will say this, that if I hear a lie come out of your mouth, I'll be like, that's a lie. Don't agree that. That's my children is like, don't you
Don't
dare
speak
talk
that
to,
out.
don't speak that out. So I want everybody who's listening today is like, just think about the things that you play on repeat in your head, that broken record that you say to
Yeah,
yourself, that is a lie. That is not rooted in what God says about you. So you go back to
right,
scripture. What does God say about you? Because he doesn't say you're a dummy or you're a moron or you're never going to
right.
get this right or you're always going to be worthless. That's a lie. So I want everybody to like think about that as they go through the
And
next couple
watch
weeks.
the words that come out of your mouth and be aware, like, oh, that's not the truth of God. I'm not going to speak that. And because just being
Yes.
aware, like, like, these are all things that we can cut ties to with what is coming against us and oppressing us so that we can begin to walk in authority over whatever's
Yes.
going on. And so these little things, they really do matter. They really do add up.
Amen. Amen. Well, that's
Okay.
our episode today. So thank you for joining us at Intentional Breakthrough. And next time we're going to jump into lies and authority. I don't know which one first, but both. Eventually, we're
Yeah.
going to get to them. It's going to
Okay.
be fun.
Sounds good.
All right. See you next time.
If you would like to get notified of when the next episode is available and get a link sent straight to your inbox, click on the subscribe link in the description. Please leave any comments or ideas or questions you have, and we'd love to address them in future episodes. For more information on these topics, visit intentionalbreakthrough.com. And for more information on guided prayer sessions, visit anchoredbiblicalcounseling.org.